The jungle was alive. It roared with strange calls, deep growls, and clicking sounds that echoed through the thick air. But suddenly, everything stopped. No creature moved, no bird sang, no insect buzzed. Silence was sharp, like something ancient had just been disturbed. High in the canopy, Corell crouched on a thick branch, her silver eyes scanning below. She was a huntress. Trained since childhood in the ways of stealth and war, this was her planet, her hunting ground. And yet, even she felt a chill. Something unnatural had happened. Something powerful. She sniffed the air and caught it, the sharp burn of gunpowder. Alien, rare, forbidden in these parts. Without a sound, she dropped to the ground. Her claws silent against the moss, she moved like smoke, blending with shadows and leaves. The scent grew stronger, and then she saw it, a clearing, wide and open. The earth torn by heavy paws and deep claw marks, and in the center lay a beast, the tusk beast, armored and known for charging down gunships. It was dead, its skull shattered clean through the center. One perfect shot between the eyes. Beside the body stood a figure tall, calm and still, not alien. Not machine, human. He wore simple brown gear, dirt-covered and damp from sweat. No armor, no shield, just a long-barreled weapon slung casually on his back. He didn't roar in victory, didn't celebrate. He just knelt down and whispered something. To the dead beast, Corell's heart pounded. How had he done this? That shot should have been impossible. Even trained snipers from the Galactic Guild couldn't land a kill like that, not in the jungle. Not while standing, yet here he was. As calm as the falling rain, she stepped back, careful not to break a twig or rustle a leaf. But then his head turned slightly. "Come out," he said softly. Without looking, Corell froze. He couldn't have heard her. Her stealth was perfect. Could he smell her? Sense her? Was he truly that skilled? She stayed silent, waiting. The human didn't move again, just stood and turned toward the deeper jungle. Then, with a quiet voice, he added, "I'm not here to fight you." And he walked away, disappearing into the trees as if he belonged to them. Corell's hands trembled. She had seen elite hunters fall trying to kill a tusk beast. She had trained for years to be chosen as a top huntress, but this human, he had done the impossible without backup or tech. And now, she was curious more than that. She was drawn. She began to follow him, keeping high in the trees. Using her cloaking instinct and breath control, every movement he made was smooth, quiet, focused. He didn't just hunt. He became the hunt. Hours passed. And he stopped again, this time near a stream. He knelt, washing his hands and filling a metal canteen. Corell watched from above, hidden in vines. Suddenly, he looked up, straight at her. "I brought extra jerky if you're hungry," he said with a small smirk. She narrowed her eyes, unsure if it was a trick, but the scent hit her. Smoked meat, real, fresh, and spiced. Her stomach betrayed her with a quiet growl. With a slow leap, she landed across from him. Still crouched like a predator, he didn't reach for a weapon, just opened a pouch and tossed her a piece of meat. Corell caught it, sniffed it, when it took a small bite. It was good, too good. She finished it and said nothing, still unsure. Why he was alone here, he finally spoke again. "Name's Jack," he said, "from Earth." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. He already knew she was watching him, learning, studying, and now she would follow him deeper, because she had to know what kind of human could hunt like that. What made him different from the weak ones who died screaming in the jungle? And why, when she looked into his eyes, she didn't see prey. She saw a rival, or perhaps something even more dangerous. The forest remained quiet long after they left, as if it too knew something had just changed. And far above, hidden eyes watched both of them, because if a human could kill like that, what else was he capable of? Jack moved like he had walked the jungle for years. But Corell knew the truth. He'd arrived only days ago. Still, he never stepped where the snakes curled, never brushed against poisonous moss. He ducked before low-hanging spikes, and at one point, casually picked a fruit that could blind most species, and ate it with a grin. She followed from the trees, silent as mist. Yet something inside her stirred, a strange feeling she couldn't name. Huntresses were trained to observe without emotion, but watching this human was different. He didn't act like prey, nor did he dominate the forest like a warlord. Respected it, moved with it. Corell wasn't sure whether she was studying him or if she had become the prey herself. Jack suddenly stopped, crouching. By a muddy patch, he touched the ground gently and smiled. "A fresh trail," he whispered. Something big and limping, he spoke to no one, yet Corell knew he was aware of her. She stayed hidden, but her grip on the branch tightened. He shouldn't be able to sense her, she had cloaked herself completely. Even her breathing was slowed to match the trees swaying, but Jack did something that made her breath hitch. He picked up a sharp stick, dipped it in dark mud, and drew a symbol on a nearby rock. It was a mark one her people used during tribal hunts. The meaning was clear. "I see you." "But I don't fear you." Corell's tail twitched, her pride challenged. Was he mocking her or acknowledging her? She had never met a human who knew their ancient symbols. Minutes passed, then hours. He tracked the beast across thick vines, crossed rivers with makeshift rafts, and never once checked behind. But Corell was still there, and now her curiosity burned like fire. She finally dropped down silently behind him as he made camp under a ridge. Still cloaked, she stepped forward, but froze when he spoke again. "Hope you don't mind fish stew," Jack said without turning. "Caught one just for us." Corell uncloaked and narrowed her eyes. His back was to her. But he somehow knew she was there. She stepped closer. Sitting across the small fire, steam rose from the pot, carrying the smell of roasted herbs and something familiar. "You used nitroot," she said quietly. Jack nodded. "Picked it up from a trader. Not bad, huh?" Corell didn't answer, just watched him. "Why are you really here, human?" she asked. Jack looked at her, then smiled. Faintly, "I came to see if the stories were true," he said. "That this planet eats cowards and keeps the brave?" Corell chuckled softly. The sound surprising even herself. "You're brave, then," she said, "or stupid. Maybe both." Jack replied with a wink. They ate in silence, the fire crackling between them. Corell couldn't stop watching his hands. Rough, scarred, skilled. Not from machines or power suits, but from hunting, building, surviving. Later that night, when the fire had burned low, Jack stood and walked toward the edge of the camp. He looked out at the trees and said, "I know you've been following me since the Tusk Beast." Corell didn't deny it. "I didn't follow you to kill," she said. "I wanted to understand how a soft-skinned human did what even my best couldn't." Jack turned toward her, his face calm but firm. "Maybe it's because I've had to survive things worse than beasts," he said. "Back on Earth, we don't just hunt, we adapt." Corell tilted her head. "Adapt? How?" Jack raised a brow by watching. Listening, failing, and then getting back up. She had no answer to that. It felt honest. Not some rehearsed speech or boastful roar. Just a truth spoken by a man who had bled more than he bragged. As the moon rose, Corell stepped back into the shadows. But before she cloaked, she said something that surprised them both. "If you continue to hunt like this, someone will challenge you soon." Jack smiled. "Then I'll be ready." And for the first time in her life, Corell wasn't sure who the real hunter was. From above, she watched him lay down, his weapon beside him, his heartbeat steady. Even in sleep, most warriors feared this jungle, but he embraced it. She clutched the symbol he had drawn earlier, now carved into a broken branch near the fire. He wasn't just hunting prey. He was making a mark on the land, on her and her. Maybe on the future, asterisk. The jungle had teeth, big ones, sharp ones, hidden ones. But nothing compared to the Maulback, a beast even the huntress clans feared. It moved through the jungle like thunder with claws that could rip through rock and bone. It was said to be unstoppable, born from the jungle's anger itself. Corell stood beside Jack, staring at the deep claw marks carved into the trees. "This is your test," she said, voice low. "You want respect, acceptance. You face them all back." Jack didn't blink. "What happens if I fail?" he asked. Corell's eyes narrowed. "Then the jungle takes your bones and no one speaks your name again." He only smiled and began checking his gear. No advanced tech, no heavy armor. Just a bow he carved himself, some hand-tied traps, and a spear made from local bone. Corell watched him silently. Why did this human refuse modern weapons? Why did he choose the old ways, the dangerous, painful ways, and why did she admire him for it? They tracked them all back for 2 days. Twice they found shredded trees. Once a broken mech suit, the pilot long gone. Each night they camped, and Jack would cook something simple. Corell rarely spoke, but when she did, Jack listened like her words were rare gems. On the 3rd night, he asked her, "Why do you care if I pass the trial?" Corell hesitated, then replied, "Because if you fail, I'll be ordered to pretend you never existed." Jack looked at her for a long moment. "Would you obey that order?" She didn't answer, and that said enough. At dawn, they found it. The Malbec stood over a fallen tree, its hide-like. Stone fangs coated with old blood. It was bigger than Jack expected, twice his size at least. Corell whispered, "I go no further. This is your trial." Jack nodded once, then stepped forward, alone. The beast turned slowly, its red eyes focusing on the small figure before it. It growled a deep sound that shook the leaves. Jack didn't flinch. He took a breath, stepped left, and threw a stone. The Malbec lunged, smashing trees where Jack had been seconds earlier. Corell watched from the shadows above, holding her breath. Jack didn't try to outrun it. He let it. Every trap he had set before now came alive. Spiked vines whipped up, slowing the beast. Pitfalls collapsed, making it stumble. He leaped, rolled, dodged, and fought with wild, precise energy. But the Malbec didn't die easily. It slashed his arm, bit through part of his spear. Jack bled, groaned, but didn't back down. Then, in a final move, he did something no one had ever done. He climbed the Malbec, while it thrashed and roared. Jack used a sharpened bone dagger and drove it into the soft spot just below the skull, again and again, until the beast finally dropped. Silence returned to the jungle, only this time it was not out of fear, it was out of respect. Corell jumped down and ran to him. He was covered in blood, breathing hard, but alive. "You did it?" she whispered, kneeling beside him. Jack laughed through the pain. "Told you I'd bring it down?" She looked at him, really looked, not as a human, not as an outsider, but as something more, something rare. She placed her clawed hand over his chest and said, "No one's ever made the Malbec kneel, not even our champions." Jack whispered back, "Guess I just wanted to impress a certain huntress." Her breath caught, her fingers curling slightly. This was no longer just about the trial, no longer about proving strength. This was about connection to hunters from different worlds with the same fire from the trees. Hidden eyes watched. Other huntresses, the elders, the spies all saw what had happened. The human had passed the trial, but more importantly, he had done something no one expected. He had earned Corell's heart. As night fell, they burned. Part of the Malbec's remains in ritual flames. Corell cut her palm and pressed it to Jack's, sealing a bond in blood. She whispered ancient words, and Jack just listened, his gaze never leaving hers. When she finished, she said, "You're no longer a stranger here," and he replied, "Then I'll stay, not just in the jungle, but with you." Somewhere deep in the darkness, the jungle sang again, not with fear, but with approval. And the legend of the human hunter continued, not as a story, but as a flame that had just begun to rise. Corell and Jack returned to the edge of her tribe's territory. The ground changed. Here the trees straighter, the vines neatly trimmed. This wasn't the wild anymore. This was the land of law, tradition, and the cold eyes of the council. They were already waiting. 6 elders stood in a crescent formation, dressed in robes woven from the feathers of jungle. Raptors, their eyes were sharp, unblinking, and very old. None smiled. Behind them stood dozens of warriors. Huntresses, scouts, and silent watchers. They had all seen the flames. They had all heard the jungle fall quiet. The Malbec skull was strapped to Jack's back. When he dropped it before the council with a heavy thud, some gasped, others stepped back. No outsider had ever survived a trial of the hunt alone, and none had ever returned with proof. The oldest counselor stepped forward, Elder Yihano. His voice was like dry wind scraping over stone. "You passed the trial, human," he said slowly. "But that does not make you one of us." Jack said nothing, just looked him in the eye. Corell stepped forward and raised her voice. "He fought with honor, bled for the jungle, and earned the Malback submission?" Another elder scoffed. "And what do you seek now?" "Corell, a mate." Gasps rippled through the gathering. Corell's jaw clenched, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she said loud enough for all to hear, "I seek a future stronger than the past, and I believe his genes are worthy to carry forward." Now the silence turned heavy. Jack looked at her, blinking slowly. "I appreciate that," he said awkwardly. Corell didn't blush. Huntresses didn't. But her tail flicked sharply, a sign only few would recognize as flustered. Elder Yahano stepped closer to Jack and circled him. "Do you know what happens if we accept you?" Jack shook his head. "You become more than guest, you become kin. And that," the elder said sharply, "is consequences." He turned to the crowd, raising his voice. "If we allow a human into our bloodlines, our traditions will change. Our daughters may choose outsiders. Our enemies may send spies, disguised as lovers. Are we prepared for that?" The crowd murmured. The fear spreading like smoke. Corell stood tall. "If fear is stronger than vision, then we are already weak. Did we not once welcome other clans into our circle? Did we not survive by adapting?" One of the younger huntresses stepped forward and shouted, "I saw him fight. He faced the Malback without tech. He hunts better than most of us," another added, "honored our rituals and bled for our land." The elders looked at one another. Then Elder Yehano raised his staff and slammed it into the dirt. "The council will decide," he said. "In the old way, through the right of bones." Corell's eyes widened. Even she had not expected that. The right of bones was not a test of strength. It was a test of legacy, of truth, of who the candidate really was inside. No weapon, no help, just a circle of memory crystals. Drawn from the jungle's roots, each crystal showed a part of your soul, even the hidden parts. Jack looked at her. "Should I be worried?" Corell nodded slowly. "Only if you've lived without honor." Jack gave a small shrug. "I've made mistakes, but I always stood back up." That night, under moonlight, Jack was taken to the center of the sacred grounds. The crystals were placed in a circle around him. He was told to sit, breathe deeply, and let the jungle see him. Corell stood outside the circle, fists clenched. She had no control now, no way to protect him. One by one, the crystals lit up. Visions appeared, not just for Jack, but for all who watched. A child running barefoot through burning ruins. A young man pulling his sister from rubble. A soldier refusing to shoot an enemy holding a baby. A hunter walking into a storm to save strangers, and a man broken but smiling. Crafting his own bow after losing everything, the last vision showed him standing over the Malback, not with pride, but sorrow, he whispered. "You were beautiful," as he closed its eyes. When the crystals dimmed, there was silence. Then the elders stood. Elder Yehano stepped forward once more and said, "The jungle has spoken," and he placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. "Welcome. Son of Earth, your blood is now part of ours." Corell exhaled for the first time in hours, and in that moment, something ancient shifted. Not just for Jack, not just for her, but for an entire people. A human had entered the story of the huntresses not as prey, not as invader, but as a partner, and perhaps as the beginning of something greater. Jack stood before the tribe's altar, the mark of blood still fresh on his neck, a sign that he had been accepted. But acceptance on paper was not the same as acceptance in hearts. The elders had approved him, but many warriors still watched. Him with doubt, he felt it in every glance, every whispered word when he passed by. He was not one of them, not truly. Not yet. He had survived the trial, passed the rite, even impressed the council. But the jungle was only part of the test. The people were the other half. Corell saw it too. She walked beside him, proudly, fearlessly. Dot noticed how other huntresses stepped aside with narrowed eyes. how the trainers tightened their grips on their spears when he entered the camp circle. Respect was not given easily among warriors. It had to be earned, and some refused to believe a human could ever deserve it. So when the tribe announced the open hunt, Jack saw his chance. Each season, warriors would compete to bring back the rarest prey. The winner earned favor, glory, and the tribe's trust. It was tradition, ancient and fierce, and Jack stepped forward and said, "I will enter the hunt." The crowd murmured. Some even laughed. A young huntress shouted, "Why risk yourself, human? Haven't you proven enough?" Jack met her gaze and said, "If I walk with you, live with you, and one day raise children here, I want them to carry no shame." Corell's eyes widened slightly at his words. He had spoken of children in front of everyone. The elders allowed it, but they gave no special treatment. He would start with no supplies, no team, no guide. And the prey chosen for this year was the stone howler, a beast that screamed loud enough to crack bone. And its hide was so tough that even plasma weapons failed to pierce it before dawn. Corell came to him with a small pouch. Inside was a shard of her own hunting blade, a gesture of silent protection. "I won't fight this one with you," she said softly. Jack nodded. "I know, but if you return with that beast," she added, "none will ever question your place again." He entered the jungle alone. The air was thick, damp, and heavier than usual. He followed no map, only instincts. Signs of the stone howler were rare. Bent trees, shattered rocks, a claw mark deep in the stone. He followed these signs for 3 days. A thunderstorm hit the jungle, flooding rivers, turning trails to mud. He didn't stop, even when his feet blistered, even when he ran out of dried meat. He hunted like a ghost, and then, one night, he heard it, a deep, horrible sound that shook the trees, the scream of the stone howler. He crouched low, hiding behind a wall of roots, and there it was, massive, gray eyes glowing red. Its mouth was split in 3 directions, like jagged wings. Every breath it took sounded like metal scraping on stone. Jack waited. He didn't charge, didn't throw anything. Instead, he watched its movements. He realized it didn't see well. It used vibrations to detect threats. So he stopped breathing, even slowed his heartbeat as best he could. He moved only when thunder rolled, each step masked by the crash of the storm above. He climbed a tree silently and waited, and when the beast passed under, dropped driving Corell's shard straight between its layered plates. The beast roared, shook, and slammed into trees. But Jack held on, cutting deeper with every shake. When it finally collapsed, he was soaked in blood and rain. But standing, when he returned, dragging a piece of the beast behind him, the camp went silent. No one spoke, not even the doubters. Corell ran to him, eyes wide, heart pounding. "You did it," she whispered. Jack looked at her and simply said, "Now they know." The elders touched the shard he used and spoke. "This blade once belonged to Corell, and now it is brought down a stone howler in the hands of a human. May this story be carved into our walls." The tribe began to chant his name, and this time, they meant it. That night, under the firelights, Corell didn't sit beside him. She sat in his lap, her tail wrapped around him, a sign of claim, a sign of bonding, and no one dared challenge it, because Jack had not just passed the trials. He had passed the tribe. Asterix peace never lasts long on a planet filled with predators, especially not when a human becomes the center of every story. Whispers spread like fire through the trees, first to nearby tribes, then to distant worlds. The jungle didn't just have a new hunter. It had something far more dangerous, a symbol. Jack's victory over the Malback and Stonehowler had become legend, told in every campfire circle, carved into stone, painted on leaves. He was no longer the outsider. He was the hunter who became tribe. But legends invite envy, and envy always attracts eyes, sharp, foreign, and unkind. One morning, while Corell and Jack trained young scouts near the river, a black flare streaked across the sky, a signal not from their people. It came from the sky tribes, the winged ones who lived far beyond the cliffs. They rarely visited the jungle, and when they did, it was never for peace. A delegation arrived within hours. For tall beings with feathered armor and glowing masks, they floated more than walked. Silent and proud, their leader stepped forward and spoke without greeting. "We come not for trade, not for alliance," he said. "We come for him." The camp stirred. Warriors stepped forward, hands on weapons. Corell's tail snapped in warning. Jack stood calmly, wiping sweat from his brow. "And why do you want me?" he asked. The Sky Leader's voice cut like ice. "Because our daughters now dream of humans. They refuse arranged bonds. They speak of freedom, of choice. They speak of you." Gasps rippled through the huntresses. Corella's eyes darkened with fury. "They blame you," she growled, "for their own weakness." The Sky Leader turned to her. "No, we blame the infection of your love." Without warning, one of the delegates threw a silver disc into the air. It burst, casting holograms Jack's face in dozens of tribes. Alien girls drawing him in paint, mimicking his weapons, copying his hunting style. One even showed a Sky Tribe daughter carving Jack's name into her wing. They want him. The Sky Leader hissed. They want his strength and his seed. Corell stepped forward. Claws out. "You come here." "To steal my bonded mate." Jack's voice was low, but firm. "I belong to no one but her." The camp tightened into a wall of warriors. No one needed orders. No one had to speak. They would not let the Sky Tribe take him, not after all he had. Done. But the Sky Leader raised a hand. "No battle today," he said. "We bring an invitation. Our queen requests his presence, just for one night." Corell growled. "You'd think I'd let him near your queen." Jack stepped in, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I'll go," he said. The entire camp went still. Corell's voice cracked. "Why?" Jack turned to her. "Because fear spreads faster than truth if I show them what I am. Maybe they'll stop hunting fantasies." Corell closed her eyes, but nodded. "I'll be watching." She whispered. Jack smirked. "I'd be worried if you weren't, that night." A skyship hovered over the jungle like a silver moon. Jack boarded alone, leaving behind warriors' flames. And Corell's worried eyes inside, he was led to a chamber filled with soft light and perfumes. The Sky Queen sat upon a throne of crystal feathers. She was beautiful, elegant, but her smile was sharp as broken glass. "You confuse my daughters," she said calmly. "They dream of love, of strength, of a man who hunts for honor. You ruin the plans we've made for generations." Jack bowed slightly. "I didn't ask for that." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "But now that it's happened, I must decide what to do with you." He met her gaze. "You can try to erase me," he said, "or you can accept that your people are choosing their future, not yours." For a moment, the room was still. Then the Queen stood and circled. "Him, you're not handsome by our standards. Your skin is rough, your bones too thick, and yet you burn with something my people have lost." She stepped closer. "My daughter has asked to meet you." Jack didn't move. "I already have someone," he said. "And she's worth more than all your thrones." The Queen's face hardened. But there was a strange glint in her eye. Not anger. "Respect. You will leave now," she said. "But the galaxy will remember you." The next morning, the skyship vanished. Jack returned to the jungle. Corell ran to meet him, but stopped when she saw his calm smile. "You're back," she breathed. "I always come back to you," he said. And though the Sky Tribe would watch from afar, they now knew what Corell had always known, that this human wasn't just a hunter. He was a storm, and storms cannot be caged. The jungle had changed, not in sound, not in color, but in something deeper. The trees felt calmer, the wind softer, as if the land itself had taken a long breath. Because for the first time in history, two different bloodlines had chosen to stand as one. Corell no longer walked alone. She walked with Jack, her hand sometimes in his, sometimes gripping her blade. The tribe had grown to accept him, not just for what he had done, but for what he had become, a leader, a mate, and, soon, something else. Corell touched her stomach one morning as birds sang above her tent. She already knew before any test, before the elders confirmed it. Life stirred inside her, not just hers, not just Jack's, but something new, the child. Of a human hunter and an alien huntress, the air of instincts and courage, of love and war. She didn't tell Jack immediately. Instead, she watched him from the shade as he trained the younglings. He taught them to build traps from branches, to listen to the ground instead of just looking at it. He laughed when they fell, but picked them up without judgment. They didn't see him as the human anymore. They saw him as teacher. That night, around the fire, she placed his hand over her stomach. At first he blinked, confused. Then his eyes widened, and his voice, usually so steady, shook. Are you sure? Carell nodded. He exhaled slowly, then laughed. A hunter and a huntress made a life together. He whispered, guess. That's one story no one saw coming. The news spread through the tribe within hours. Some were stunned, some nervous, but most smiled because deep down they had grown to admire Jack, and the thought of his blood living on with Carell's fire beside it gave them hope. The elders called for a gathering. This was not just about a child, this was about the future. Would the tribe accept this hybrid? Would the galaxy? Or would they fear it? Carell stood before the crowd with Jack beside her. The firelight danced across her armor, his scars, and her swelling belly. Elder Yehano stepped forward, eyes narrowed but curious. You bring us a question we've never faced, he said. What name will this child carry? Jack looked at Carell, then said, one that honors both. Not human, not alien, just hunter. A ripple of murmurs moved through the crowd. Then one of the younger warriors stepped forward and raised her hand. I say we let the child earn their name like all of us, and the rest followed. One by one voices rose, not in anger, but in unity. That night, Jack and Carell lay under the stars. She rested her head on his chest. He ran fingers through her hair slowly. Do you think they'll accept our child fully? He asked. Carell smiled softly. They won't have a choice, she said. Our child will hunt like me and speak like you. They both laughed quietly. But they knew the world outside the jungle was still watching. Sky tribes, old empires, and those who feared change would all be curious. Some would want the child, some would want to destroy it. But Jack had faced worse, and Carell would burn down any world that dared threaten her family. As seasons passed, the child was born beneath a full moon. Her skin carried a human tone, but her eyes were bright silver. Her hands were soft, but her grip was strong. The tribe gathered to watch her take her first breath, and when she cried, birds scattered across the sky. They named her Rin, meaning bridge between hunts. She grew fast, learned faster. By the time she was walking, she could already track insects through mud. By her 3rd year, she could mimic every bird call. And when asked where she came from, she would proudly say, my mother is Carell, the fiercest huntress. My father is Jack, the human who made monsters kneel, tear, and no one dared correct her. In time, Rin would become the first of many. The tribes began to open. Other humans arrived, warriors, teachers, dreamers. Not all stayed, but some bonded. The jungle began to change again, not weaker, stronger. And through it all, Jack and Carell stood side by side. Legends not carved in stone, but walking, breathing, living. Because love born in the hunt never fades. It only grows sharper, like a blade forged by survival and tempered in fire.